Why do the Boston Celtics give up so many offensive rebounds? I looked at every single one of them from this season, and I know the answer. Plus, Marcus Smart is not 100%, and other thoughts that I didn't get to in the last post-game podcast. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I'm here for you every day with a fresh, free podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube as well. I do appreciate you making this podcast your first listen every day. I'm John Karalis, and if you think I sound funny, it's because I have this mask on. I figured if Grant Williams can do a show with a mask on, I can too, and it's Halloween and all that, but I can't do this for half an hour, so I appreciate Grant Williams' commitment to the bit, but I can't do it. Oh, man. But that was a fun mask with the little jaw that moves. I scared a few people on Halloween with that. Let me just take this off here. That was just for the folks on YouTube. I do appreciate you listening. John Karalis here, former professional basketball player, now covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. And I wrote a book called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. So in the show later on, random thoughts from the game, the win over the Washington Wizards, which I didn't get to in the podcast immediately after the game. In the second segment, Marcus Smart's not 100%. And I didn't touch on that yesterday either. But he admitted that he's not 100%. And I think that that's something that's worth talking about a little bit more. But first, I want to talk about a piece that I did on Boston Sports Journal where I looked at the offensive rebounding, the issue that the Celtics are giving up a ton of offensive rebounds, and try to figure out, what the heck's going on here? Why are they giving up so many offensive rebounds? And a lot of people are asking the question, like, okay, what big do you need to get? Because they're just getting crushed on the boards. What big do you need to get? And after looking at it, I think to myself, well, they don't need to get another big. All they need to do is try a little harder. And so let's just start with that. First of all, today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. It's your number one source for all of your betting needs. Go to betonline.net. Check it out. BetOnline has more props, odds, and lines than ever before. It is where the game starts. Today's show also brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you need and want to talk to. Post your job free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. So, okay, offensive rebounding. What's the issue here? What's the problem? And frankly, the problem is all they do is turn and look. That's the number one issue that as I looked at every single offensive rebound that they gave up this season so far. Every single one. And I can tell you that it's not just bigs that are overpowering. It's not that these guys are boxing out and giving up a ton of offensive rebounds just because, oh, the Celtics are small and these guys are big and we're not able to keep these guys off the glass. That's not the issue at all, actually. In fact, if you think about the offensive rebounds that the Celtics have given up recently, the biggest offensive rebounds were from guards, that specifically Caris LeVert. But there are examples that I've used. If you look on I use a bunch of video on the Boston Sports Journal. They had, Rui Hachimura as a forward. Cole Anthony had a big one. Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Caris LeVert. Those guys are just getting lost, and they're all wing guys. This isn't a problem with bigs. This is a problem with wings. This is a problem with the Celtics turning and looking and not doing the little things that they need to do. So one of the things that I think is super important about NBA rebounding is just the check. It's almost like if you're switching lanes on a highway, you look in the mirror or you feel like, okay, nobody's coming, but you just give that little glance. All right, okay, nobody's there. I can go. That little glance is something that could have saved the Cavaliers game. Because if you're Malcolm Brogdon and you give that little glance and you say, oh crap, Caris LeVert is coming, I get to go in there and like put a body on him. That little glance is something that when you are able to recognize that a guy is crashing, you can go put a body on him. You can stop this from happening. So I think it's one of those little tiny, minute nuanced things that when I look at these guys just losing players in this Wizards game, Al Horford turning his head, and it's everybody. It's everybody. Al Horford ball watching, thinking Rui Hachimura is out of the play. And then here comes Hachimura right down the middle, offensive rebound. It's Malcolm Brogdon not paying attention to Caris LeVert. And as I mentioned in yesterday's podcast, not paying attention to Caris LeVert when LeVert was the guy who crashed before and got an offensive rebound. Those little things from the guards, from the perimeter, those guys can help the Celtics cut down on these offensive rebounds that they're giving up. Here are some numbers that I thought were important. The Celtics have the 5th worst rebounding percentage overall. They have they're allowing 10.8 offensive rebounds per game. That's right in the middle of the pack. But they're only boxing out 5 times per game, according to NBA tracking data, which I know can be iffy. But 5 box outs, no matter what, 5 box outs, even if they miss a couple, even if you miss 2, even if you miss 3, that's still not a lot of box outs. And I can tell you, honestly, from watching the video, and again, every single offensive rebound, I didn't see a lot of boxing out. I think 5 might be high for box outs. The Celtics' offensive rebounding issues are part of their defense issues. The Celtics are 3 or 4 rebounds per game away from being okay. You clear away 3 or 4 rebounds. Think about that Cavs game where you had, a 5-point lead with a couple minutes to go, and you give up those 2 offensive rebounds. That right there, you cut 3, 4 offensive rebounds out. You go from middle of the pack to the best. The number 1 team in the NBA is still giving up 7.3 offensive rebounds, 7.3 per game. That's the Raptors. And they're going to happen. Offensive rebounds are going to happen. There are situations here that the numbers, and I will admit, the numbers are a little inflated. Vucevic had 10 offensive rebounds against the Celtics in that Chicago game. He got 3 of them on one possession, 2 of them on another, 2 of them on 7 offensive rebounds because he was tipping back his own miss. So you make one mistake, and sometimes it's a big that misses and gets his rebound back and misses and gets his rebound back, and it's just a couple of tips, and the numbers look worse than they are. Also, the Celtics have had a few blocked shots that go into the opponent's hands. Those count as offensive rebounds. So there are a few offensive rebounds on the books that are just Celtics made a good defensive play, but the block shot happened to just fall into the opponent's hands. What are you going to do? You can't control that. Even some of the slap downs. Derek White had one in this last game. Slap down on, I think it was Kyle Kuzma. Slap down the ball, like he lets go of the ball. That counts as a blocked shot, which means when Kuzma catches that ball back, that's an offensive rebound. So some of those offensive rebounds, the numbers can be a little tricky, but the overarching message is that when the guys on the perimeter see a shot go up, they're not putting in enough effort to box out or at least check to see if anybody's coming. Just check. Turn your head. Anybody coming? No. Anybody coming? No. Just a quick glance. If somebody's coming, step in front of them. Simple stuff. There are other schematic things. The Celtics on the pick and roll are giving up offensive rebounds to the rolling big. That's a problem. They have to fix that. But these are all fixable things. So the Celtics offense looks great. The Celtics defense can be up and down. But when the Celtics defense actually gets a stop and they give up offensive rebounds, that's tough. That's demoralizing. If they can clean that up, I really do believe that they can clean this up effectively. Just with a little effort, little recognition, understanding. Who did I just leave? Why are there two guys here? If there are two guys here, somebody's free. Understanding who's on the floor, saying, okay, I left this guy. Where did he go? Understanding all that stuff and just putting in just a tiny bit more effort. They can clean up this offensive rebounding stuff. They can clean it up actually very, very easily. So that is all to say. First of all, please go to bostonsportsjournal.com and see the whole full thing and look at the video examples that I put forth and check that out, because I think the Celtics defense hinges a lot on them closing out the end of these possessions. And if they can do that, this defense, their defensive rating will go up. They'll be a much better defensive team. And that'll get them ready for Rob to come back. And things will be a little bit more, things will stabilize a little bit more. So that's the offensive rebounding. Up next, Marcus Smart admits he's not 100%. We'll talk about that. First, LinkedIn jobs. I grew up in a small business. I know how hard it is to find the right people. And really all you need to find the right people is to find the right pool of the right candidates. So to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Very simple. A few clicks. You can create your free job post on LinkedIn Jobs. Then you add your purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. That spreads the word that you're hiring. Now, once you get access to that pool of people, just like a basketball team, you can start evaluating and cutting away the ones that don't exactly fit your needs. You have simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. This is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Why not make your second listen the Locked On Sports Today podcast? Locked On Sports Today is the games that matter from the biggest stories across all of sports. So go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes, local experts like only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, wherever you got the show, however you're listening to or watching the show, Locked On Sports Today exists there. Hey, surprise, Halloween surprise. It's Tom Westerholm. Scary.
Yeah.
Nice costume.
Wearing my Jeffrey Dahmer glasses, trying to scare all you people.
Oh, man. I like it. Okay. I was going to make a joke, but I want to keep my job. So let's just move on to another scary thing, an actual scary thing. Marcus Smart is not 100%.
Yeah.
That is a scary thing. So I feel like you don't have to be paying that close of attention to see that Marcus Smart is wincing on the floor. And then I'm on the floor yesterday pregame and just watching him warm up, and I can see him rubbing the inside, like part of his thigh, kind of where like that oblique meets the hip in that area. And I could just see him wincing, and I'm just like, this is not good. It's not good. That's why I asked him after the game, how are you feeling physically? And he smiled because he was like, okay, everybody sees it. this is something that I'm not sure how the Celtics should handle this, because on the one hand, I thought he had a really good game, minus some of the shooting, but I thought he had a really good game against Washington. Those
Mhm.
2 highlight steals were amazing, and I thought he just was good all around. But he also had a couple of really bad games. He was not great against the Cavs. Actually, he was pretty bad against the Cavs, and he was not great against the Bulls. There in my offensive rebounding thing, Marcus Smart is a culprit,
Yeah.
a bunch of times for sure. And I I don't want to give him the exact out to say, oh, he's only doing this because he's hurt. No, I mean the shooting has no impact there. But if the question, Tom, is if he's hurt and he's not able to give you everything, is it just better to say, okay, let's just give him a couple of weeks to see if that can help him out? Is it a thing like that, or do you just roll with it and just hope that he can just deal with the pain because Marcus Smart is a maniac like that?
I mean, I always like tend to err on the side of caution, especially early in the season like this. There's let's say the Celtics held Marcus Smart out and they had Smart and Rob Williams out for a week, and they went, or a week and a half or whatever, and they went 500 over that stretch. Like if you do that, you're still over 500 and you still have the entire season stretching out ahead of you.
Yeah.
Like getting guys right now has to, in my opinion, be the priority. I 100% could see the utility in holding him out, especially at that position. Like, how many times have we said it that the Celtics are loaded at that guard position? You have
Yeah.
Derek White, you have Malcolm Brogdon, you have Peyton Pritchard just rotting away on the bench who can be your backup. Like,
Exactly.
there's all of these guys who can fill in that gap. And honestly, the thing about Marcus Smart is that, like, what he gives you is so valuable that you kind of need all of it. You
Yeah.
need that entire just burst of defense that he gives you. And if he doesn't have that, he's still a good player. Like you said, he had he did a lot of good stuff. He's still got all of his instincts. He's still got all of his, tenacity, his grit, whatever you want to point out. But at the same time, yeah, like you need like the entirety of the Marcus Smart experience. I think to really reap all the benefits. So I would certainly be in favor of just getting him right, because this Celtics team, like there's guys on this team who are kind of injury prone. Get everybody healthy if you can.
I think there are multiple reasons to give Smart some time off. And there's evidence that the double big lineup is actually okay. Early, it's not a ton of evidence, and I don't have a ton of numbers on it, but from what I see, you can go double big.
Mhm.
And I think Cornette, and I'm always careful to say I'm not dying on the Luke Cornette hill, but at the same time, I keep talking about him, so it's hard for me to deny that I'm dying on the Luke Cornette hill. But I think over the past couple of games, we've seen Cornette get in. We've seen him do well, and I think there's some justification for him getting in and getting the start with Horford. You start Brogdon, and you can do Brogdon, Jaylen, Jayson in the 2 bigs, and bring Derek White off the bench and go that route. You have Noah Vonleh, who's been okay up and down, but can fill a role.
For sure.
And you hit on it. You have Peyton Pritchard, who's just dying to get some time. Let's put Pritchard in there for 2-3 weeks and get him some run, second units, 15 minutes a game here and there. I think the Celtics, even with Robert Williams out, the Celtics can survive and actually do okay.
Yeah.
with Smart out. I think that now, if you're going to do it now. And this is the tough call. And like I say, Smart's coming off a decent game. So you can say, well, he doesn't need to be out, but you need him to be 100% later in the season. Do this now, get him right, and just rely on the depth at a position that you have a ton of depth in. And later on, I think you'll reap the benefits from this. And I'm a Marcus Smart guy. I believe in him. I think now's the time to give him some rest. That slip and fall, for people who didn't hear him say it, the slip and fall in Montreal against the Raptors aggravated something, which pisses me off just in general, just from a just general player health perspective. But if that's the case, if something's been aggravated, rest it, get right, and then come back and be yourself.
There's this really weird kind of line that like guys have to walk when they're professional athletes, and certainly guys who are as tough as Marcus Smart have to walk, right? Where they want to be out there and they feel like they can be out there, and they can be, but it's just like,
I know what you're saying.
but wouldn't it just be better? Like, you could be out there more if you just kind of took that time now, or you just kind of took like a game or two now, whatever it is. Like, I mean, maybe it doesn't even have to be a couple weeks, maybe it's just something where it's a couple games. Maybe he just needs, like a little stretch, whatever it is. I don't know. I just think like that line is so hard to walk at this current stage, but it feels like it would be much smarter to walk that line at this current stage, as opposed to being forced to take a break for longer because you aggravated something. Because like you said, I mean, he said he aggravated something serious, right? Like, it wasn't just like, it was like, I don't know. That's got to be a difficult thing for somebody like Smart, who wants to play and who cares very much, to do. But at the same time, like, what you really want to do is play the playoffs and play down the stretch run. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe do that instead.
It's a wild kind of scenario for him, because first of all, that injury is in a tough place. And that, I think, is part of the calculus here, because it's an oblique / hip. That area of the body, I mean, so much emanates from that. Yep. That's your core. And so it's not like you're saying, okay, Tatum's left wrist is a thing again, right? He fell on it. But okay, it's his left wrist. You say, it's not great, but he can deal with it and fine. It's his offhand, fine. Guys are going to be dealing with things all year long. But that is so central to who he is. Those little dives, everything comes from that area. An oblique to a basketball player, everything in basketball is twisting. Everything is turning. Everything. I mean, I guess that's true of basically all sports, but it's just so important. I don't want to be having this conversation in April where Smart is clearly not 100%, and we say, geez, they should have really sat him down a few months ago, because now he's really dragging and he doesn't look like himself. I just don't want to be in that situation.
And I mean, it's tough, right? Because I mean, like, last game, Brogdon was, kind of like trying to warm up. He was dealing with some back issues.
Lower back, yeah.
Yeah, ended up playing anyway. These things can be tough. Like Brogdon said, his back felt better because he played. Like, there's
sure
different things certainly, but like, it's like, obviously injuries are complicated, but again, I think at this stage in the season, it does make more sense just to give the guy some time off. It's not going to kill you. It's certainly not going to, kill your seeding at this point. You're fine.
As a person who has dealt with injuries much of his playing career, I can tell you that, I remember walking, quote unquote, walking into games and looking. At that point, I was like early 20s and walking worse than I walk now. But you put those pads on, the warm up, those heating pads on, and you get out into warm ups and you get into the game. And it was almost like, okay, now that I'm playing, I feel fine. I don't even want to come out of the game,
right?
Because coming out of the game cools me off. Just let me keep playing, because the more I keep playing, the looser I feel. But at the same time, it'd be nice to just not have that feeling in the first place, which is what I want for Marcus Smart. All right, I don't want to belabor the point. Marcus Smart, not 100%. I'd like to get him to 100%. All right, let's take a second here. When I come back, we'll talk about, I have a list of a few things that I didn't like from the game. Tom, I'll put some pressure on you. If there are any lists, things that you had from the game, we'll talk about that in just a second. All right, we did the post-game podcast last night. I was stuck in the bowels of the TD Garden. I have escaped. I had to run a gauntlet through the garden, past Cerberus and other mythical creatures for Halloween.
A scary clown that was creeping up on you in the middle of the pod.
Came alive and chased me with a knife out of the building, for, as far as people know. All right, let's get to some things that I liked from the game, that we liked from the game, that or just random things that we didn't get to in that podcast. I'll start. Tatum as a screener, love it. And I will say, and I'll have to dive into this. This might be one of the pieces that come up soon for me on Boston Sports Journal, but Joe Mazzulla's offense is a good offense. Now, every offense is a good offense right now. ESPN has a story on their front page, 115 points a game. Everybody's offense is going crazy. That's, I think, what the NBA has wanted with all of these rules and taking away the take foul, which, yes, thank you. But teams are just scoring a ton of points. The Celtics are very much at, near the top of that list. But I think Joe Mazzulla's offense is a really good one. It's creative, uses a lot more guards and wings as screeners, and Tatum as a screener is, I think, in the same kind of category as Giannis Antetokounmpo as a screener. What the hell do you do defensively? Who do you go with? Are you going to leave the ball handler because Tatum rolling to the rim is so scary? Yeah, of course he's scary. Yeah, you got to account for him. But he's running pick and rolls with Malcolm Brogdon and Marcus Smart. And yeah, you got to do it a little bit more with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown as the ball handler and pick and roll. Jaylen Brown, who is really, really good in the mid-range and whose passing has gotten so much better, with a Tatum that's rolling. I mean, how do you defend that? With spacing, you put Grant out there, you have Hauser out there, you have Horford out there, you have guys who can hit shots. That, I want to see much more of Tatum as a screener.
Yeah, it was actually, and it was they ran a lot of that last year. Shout out to Half City Hoops, if people, or Half Court Hoops, I think, sorry. That the guy on YouTube, he does really good breakdowns, but he had just kind of like the Celtics offensive breakdowns from last year. They ran a lot of like that 1-4 pick and roll with Tatum. But I think the other thing too is like, so yeah, like you're scared of him rolling. You're so scared of him. I mean, like the Celtics are begging you to switch, right? Like that's I mean, like what they really want. And I think the other thing, Tatum running so many of these screens and doing so much of this stuff really shows a lot of buy-in too, because he's also cutting more. And I mean, I think of you every time that dude cuts, whether or not he gets the ball. I know you do. I
love that. So many people say that. Every time somebody cuts, I think of Karalis. That makes me so damn happy because it's such a fundamental part of the game. And it's so easy to score that way. Thank you. I love it. All right.
And it's not just easy to score. It also, like, again, it just opens things up for other guys because, like, either Tatum gets an easy bucket or he doesn't get the ball at all. But the defense notices that the reason he doesn't get the ball is because the defense notices him, right? Like, and then he's.
Tom Westerholm frozen. We lost them. All right, I'm going to take him off here for a second. But yeah, I think Tatum as a screener, and to Tom's point, I think, is that when Tatum rolls or pops, you just can't help but go with him because he's Jayson freaking Tatum. And so I think the Celtics, I want to see so much more of that. But how many times I just did a mini victory lap there about how I want Tatum to be, how I like the cuts. But I also want to do a little victory lap about Jaylen and Jayson playing off of each other. And so I want Tatum to be the screener in those situations and Jaylen to be the screener. I so desperately want more Tatum and Brown pick and rolls. So we haven't seen a lot of it. We've seen a couple of them, I think, this season or in the preseason, especially. But anyway, that's that. Next up, do you have anything that we didn't get to that you liked?
Oh, yeah, I can do a few of them. So one of the things we talked a lot about Malcolm Brogdon, but I thought most specifically the fact that he was knocking down threes is so big. Like that's just. I mean, he made, I believe he was 3 of 5, 8 for 8 from the free throw line, which is quite the line. But 3 for 5 from 3. If Brogdon is making threes, it's just, it's such a problem for opponents. And I mean, we'll see how consistent that is. We've talked about, I mean, his career has been bizarre in like the way that his 3-point percentages have fluctuated up and down. But made a few of them last night, looked comfortable shooting them. I mean, if he's making threes, the Celtics offense just is going to skyrocket. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of his form.
It's weird.
It's weird. Yeah, it's way out front. It's very, I'll call it not fluid. It's not a fluid jumper. So it's the type of jumper that I think is prone to streakiness.
Yep.
But hey, look, if it goes in, it goes in. And a lot of times when you've got a little bit of a janky jumper, then confidence becomes a huge thing.
Yeah.
And giving him that confidence is big. Now, on the other side of Brogdon, I don't like how many lapses he's having. The Karis LeVert stuff, but those aren't the only lapses he's had. So he was objectively bad in the Chicago game.
Yes.
So I don't like that, but I'm willing to give him time to adjust to being a bench player. So I think some of the things that he used to be able to get away with as a starter become magnified as a bench player because you're not on the floor quite as much. And so when you're on the floor less, the things you do are all magnified. That's good and bad. So the lapses are magnified, but also the scoring, the shooting.
Right.
A 23-point game off the bench, it means a whole lot more than a 23-point game as a starter because it's just hard to come in cold. So yeah, I think Brogdon's going to be good off the bench just throughout the course of the season, and he can get to the rim, he can get past guys, and all of this stuff, the confidence that they have in him, everything points to just a comfortable type of season for him. I just don't think he's quite comfortable yet, just from what I see and just from what he's been saying.
Yeah, and from what his teammates have been saying too, because Smart yesterday even mentioned that he's not sure how much experience Brogdon has had in like switch happy defenses.
Yeah.
So
he has said that. He has. I'm sorry to interrupt, but he has said multiple times, "I've never been in a scheme that switches this much."
Exactly. So I think he's aware of it. His teammates are aware of it. It's definitely something that is going to take some time to get used to. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think lots of stuff is going to get magnified with him.
All right, I got two quick things. Let's rapid fire our way through this.
Let's get
Luke Cornett needs to shoot more. I think Brian Scalabrine had a great point that when Luke Cornett gets the ball in the post, he needs to turn and shoot so defenses think he's going to turn and shoot. This way, they don't hug up on Jayson and Jaylen on the perimeter, because if they think, oh, when he catches it there, he's just going to try to kick out, no one's going to help down on what is essentially a paint touch. So Luke Cornett needs to shoot in those situations.
That was literally going to be one of mine. So we can, lightning round it. We're
All
right
right.
past it.
All right. The Luke Cornett fake contest from 20 feet away. Funny, hilarious. They suck. I think they're terrible. And is one of the things that I highlight on Boston Sports Journal in my offensive rebounding thing. There's one play where it was against Cleveland, and it was Jared Allen. He's on Jared Allen, and the ball kicks to the corner, and he does that big contest from the paint. And Jared Allen just goes, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem. I'm going to step around you." And okay, that's great that you forced the miss, but I'm just going to tip this ball out, and we're going to keep the possession alive.
Right.
And Cornett did it again, and the shot went up, just took a weird bounce up over the backboard. But Jared Allen did the exact same thing. He's like, okay, I'm just going to step around you again. I'm going to be in offensive rebounding position. I get the concept, but I hate it. And I think it puts him out of position to rebound. And if he keeps doing it, one of these times somebody's going to catch that rebound and put it back. It's going to be a dunk putback. It's going to be highlighted on NBC Sports Boston, and it's going to end.
I hadn't thought of that. I like that point, and I have no further comment on that.
All right. Last one goes to you.
Oh, I don't have that. Luke Cornett and Brogdon were my only ones. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
No, wait, no. Let me audible.
Audible.
I think
Omaha.
My hottest Celtics take is that I think there's a non-zero chance. I don't even know if this is a hot take. I guess I could spice it up a little bit. I could see Grant Williams starting because it was my take was going to be I could see Grant Williams starting by next year.
For who? Oh, by next year? Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, I know by next year. But like to spice it up a little bit, like, it could have been like Horford or something when Rob comes back. But I kind of don't think that's going to be this year. But I do. He's a good player, man. That's all.
He's a good player.
Yep.
No, that's actually not that bad because I like the idea of Horford sticking around.
Yeah.
And I still think he's good. I still think that, I think he's very obviously a little slower than he was last year. I think he's, I'm glad that they're not playing him. They didn't play him on that back-to-back. I think limiting his minutes is something that is a good thing. And I think moving him to the bench, at least next season, keeping him around, on a mid-level deal? You traded for him, so you have his bird rights, so you can pay him whatever you want. You can overpay him on a mid-level deal at $10 million and say, that's, look, you're not – I don't think anybody's going to pay him more than 10 in the open market. So you can say, here, here you go. Here's 10. And keep him around. And he's going to come off the bench, and he can close. He can start. He can still – but, whatever he want. But actually – the whole point of this is him coming off the bench, so he can't start. But the point is, he can close and he can
start when Grant gets ejected, gets suspended.
That's right. That's right. He can start second halves. He can spot start. But I'm all in on that. And I would not be surprised if at some point during the season they say, "Hey, look, we're going to make this switch, and just for the playoffs, we'll go back to the other way. But for now, let's just do this to preserve your minutes." So.
And I think the idea of bringing him back next year too, it's just this incredible luxury that the Celtics have whenever they face the other great team in the Eastern Conference. To have those two guys. I tweeted about this, but I was watching the Nets play them the other night. And obviously the Nets aren't that good, but Ben Simmons is a legitimately really good defender and just hopeless against Giannis when Giannis decides to get going. I think Celtics fans are a little bit spoiled after watching Horford and Grant defend Giannis. It's not normal to have two guys who could do what they do to Giannis. That's abnormal. So keeping him around would be big.
I think against Embiid, against Giannis,
against Embiid too. Yes,
Embiid, he's a guy who knows how to play. You can play him 40 minutes against Embiid and then give him a week off. That's fine with me. Embiid will just lose his mind, but that's fine. All right. Hey, look, surprise podcast appearance from Tom Westerholm. We'll call it a surprise appearance.
Yeah, no, I think I like that.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for hopping on for 2/3 of the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.
And thank you for listening to the whole Locked On Celtics podcast. I hope this has been an enjoyable podcast for you. Surprise guest and mask shenanigans at the top of the show notwithstanding, I hope this has been a fun basketball podcast for you. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow, be back again. Celtics are traveling on Tuesday, so maybe tomorrow will be a mailbag podcast. A lot of questions coming in at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. And we'll rip through some questions for you before we get to the Cavs game. I will not do a crossover podcast with the Cavs. I know Quapt in the comments has mentioned that the Celtics are 0-2 now after crossover podcast previewing a game. So I'll see if we can break that curse and no preview podcast with the crossover tomorrow. So just subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and especially on YouTube as well. We'd love to have you on watching the show, and I would love to have you sharing the show. Make sure you tell all your friends that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.